Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing how to model the basic chassis of a Sd.kfz.250. So this is just kind of an example case. It's not like exclusive to this vehicle, but I'm going to show how I get these plates to be planar, essentially, without doing too much work. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to draw a kind of outline of the part that I'm going to model. So I'm just going to draw a rough outline, because I don't know if that's supposed to be quite horizontal, but it's fine. So just kind of doing the part that I'm going to actually make a model of for this video, like so. So just kind of a rough outline. I'm going to drag that a little bit and just get it looking good with the schematic. So this is kind of, I'm going to model this upper section essentially. So what I do is I create this view, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of triangulate points. So we know that this is going to be a pretty flat surface, at least in this area and the hood. So I'm going to keep that steady. So I'm going to go ahead and just call that good. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my front plane, and I'm going to start modeling reference points. So this like kind of curve, or not curve, but angle right there corresponds to this piece right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line there, and actually this should be not a construction line but a full line. So I'm going to create a line there, and then I'm going to do the same on the right plane, or it doesn't really matter if I do my mid plane or the right plane, but I'm going to do the vertical line there. And then, so I have the two lines. I'm going to do project curve. I'm going to go sketch on sketch. So I have this line selected and this line selected, and it will create that line in space here, which is what I want. And I'm going to do the same for another pair of views. So I'm going to do, it looks like, it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like this line corresponds to this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another sketch, and this one should be parallel, since they have the same vertical. They're both vertical, so they should be parallel. So I'm just going to make sure they're parallel. I have that, and then I'm going to go to the right plane again, and I'm going to draw that, that vertical line. And then I'm going to do the same project, and I'm going to draw it between those two. So that gives me these two lines. And then what I can do is, in this case, they should be able to define a plane because they're parallel, but in general, getting parallel lines is sometimes hard. So I'm going to say, like, this is the key line that I care most about, and then I'm going to collect 1 point from this one. And what it's going to do is, it's not going to be perfect a lot of the time, but it's going to be close enough, and you're going to get this key, like the one that you think is more important is going to be exact, and the other one is going to be aligned so that it's a planar face. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw this cross section. So I'm going to trace the cross section that I did on the mid plane. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to do select chain, convert, and that's not quite right actually, because I'm working on this plane. So when I convert it, it's going to map it. So what I actually want to do is I want to take this, I want to go to the mid plane, and I want to trace it in the area, like trace it on the mid plane that I want. So I'm going to go from here down to here, across, up. So I'm kind of tracing it in the region that I want this plate, this panel. And what that lets me do is now it's essentially the normal vector travels out to this plane. So then I can do a project, sketch on face, and I'm going to click that plane. And now it's going to have that sketch in 3D space. Or it's not really a sketch. In this case, it's just a curve, even though it's not continuous. So I click on it, I go into this plane, I click on that curve, and then I convert it, and it becomes a sketch. And then what I can do is I can go planar surface, and ta-da, it is a single plane that is actually planar and represents that piece of the chassis. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and kind of repeat this for some other planes that are on the vehicle, and then I'm going to come back and show how to kind of tie them all together. Okay, so just as a side note, so I'm doing the plates, And something that might be good to mention is sometimes you have a plate that, like when you have like a point where three plates meet, it might be hard to align the pieces exactly. So what I do is I actually overshoot. So I've got this plate extending through this plate. But what that lets me do, because they should be meeting at this line, but if I try to do this plate exactly at that line, I might be slightly off, and then you have some zero thickness geometry errors and a bunch of stuff. So I overshoot, and then what I go and do is I do a trim, and I'll set this as the trim tool, and then I can just delete that extra part, and I'll hide that extra part of that plate. And the same can be done the other way, where I set this as my trim tool, and then I can delete these extra parts of this plate, and suddenly they do meet at a line rather than having some weird geometry going on there. So that's how I would handle a case where three plates meet, which is pretty common, honestly. In fact, it's inevitable in most cases. So yeah. Okay, so now you've got your like kind of outer shell of your vehicle, and you might be thinking like, okay, what do I do with this? Like, sure, it has the geometry that lines up, but it's a surface. It's not solid. So how do I turn this into a solid geometry? And it's actually quite simple. So what I'm going to do is move my recording software first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to surfaces. I'm going to go to knit surface. And I'm going to select all these faces. Because right now, they're independent surfaces. So there's, what is that, like 7 surfaces? So I'm going to do merge entities. And what that will do is it will turn it into one surface body, like so. And then what I can do is I can go to my midplane, and I can trace this surface body. So I can go from here to here, right? Just trace what I did. And there's a operation in the extrude that's not quite straight, but that's okay, because I can just do this, and then that should be reasonably straight. So there's an operation in the extrude feature. That good? So what I can do is I've got now this sketch, and I can go to my extrude, and I can go up to surface. And since this is one surface, I can just click on it, and it will just fill it out up to that surface. So there's a few contingencies. The surface has to be basically not intersecting on that extrusion plane, right? So if I had one of these, another face or something coming in here, it would have trouble deciding where to go on that surface. But what I can do is I can just extrude there, and now I have this. But I also have this surface on the outside, so I can just hit the delete key, delete body. And I can always go back to before this delete in the feature tree to get it back. But without doing so, now I have this solid version of that structure that I was making. So yeah, that's how I do these kind of bodies for the German like half tracks and things like that have all these really angular shapes. So hopefully this was insightful, and yeah, thanks for watching.